It all started with a noise that didn't belong. One Saturday morning, I woke to the roar of heavy machinery outside my window. At first, I thought a neighbor was getting some landscaping done, but when I looked out, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Bulldozers, backhoes, and a full crew of construction workers were tearing into the wooded edge of my property. They weren't just trimming trees or doing maintenance, no. They were digging foundations. On my land, I threw on some clothes and stormed outside, demanding to know what they were doing. One of the contractors shrugged and said, "The HOA approved a new community center. We're just following orders." Orders from who? Because it sure as hell wasn't from me. That was the moment I realized the HOA had officially crossed a line. They had taken my silence as permission and started building their dream project on land I owned free and clear. If they thought I was going to roll over and let them steal from me, they had another thing coming. When I first bought the house, it came with a few acres of undeveloped land behind it. Nothing fancy, just some trees, a creek, and a natural clearing. I loved it because it gave me privacy from the rest of the neighborhood. The HOA had always eyed it, asking if I'd sell it for a park, a tennis court, or some community project. Single time, I gave them the same answer: no. Apparently, I didn't take no seriously. The HOA president, Karen, yes, that's her real name, and yes, it fits, had been pushing for a new clubhouse for years. She claimed it would increase property values and unify the community. But really, it was about power. She wanted a legacy, something with her name on a plaque. And now, without so much as a call, email, or knock on my door, she had sent in her hired guns to start construction of my property. I walked right up to the site foreman and told him, flat out, "You're trespassing. This is private property. Shut it down now." He looked confused. The HOA gave us the green light. I pointed to the private property sign nailed to a tree and pulled out the deed from my filing cabinet, which I kept handy for disputes. "I don't care what the HOA told you, this land is mine. If you don't stop, I'll call the sheriff." The workers exchanged nervous looks. They clearly hadn't expected a fight. Within minutes, engines went quiet and the heavy machinery fell silent. The crew packed up, muttering about not wanting legal trouble, but the HOA wasn't done, not even close. That evening, I got a knock on my door. It was Karen, flanked by two board members, arms crossed and face twisted with fury. "You had no right to interfere with community business," she snapped. I laughed. "Community business? We're literally building on my land?" Karen waved her hand like it was a technicality. "That back lot isn't being used. We assumed it was common property, and since it benefits the neighborhood, you should be grateful." "Grateful?" I nearly choked. "You tried to steal from me." Her voice dropped cold. "If you keep making trouble, the HOA has ways of making life very difficult for you." That was it. The threat was made, the battle lines drawn. And if they wanted a war, I was ready. The next morning, I visited the county records office and requested all zoning permits, land plats, and building applications filed by the HOA. I wasn't surprised by what I found. They had applied for construction, permits on my parcel number without my signature. They had submitted maps claiming my lot was common HOA land. And they had already scheduled contractors for a 6-month build. They had forged documents. Plain and simple. I called a property lawyer who immediately agreed to take the case. He told me to sit tight and let him prepare a cease and desist letter, along with a formal trespassing complaint. But I wasn't content to fight this only in court. I wanted to watch their little empire crumble in real time. The HOA held a special meeting that week to address the obstruction of community progress. Naturally, I showed up. The clubhouse was packed with residents, most of whom had no idea what was going on. Karen stood at the front, trying to spin the narrative. "This clubhouse project will increase property values by 20%. But unfortunately, a certain homeowner has selfishly decided to sabotage it." Murmurs filled the room. All eyes turned toward me. I stood up and held up my deed. "They're not telling you the truth. The HOA approved a project on my land. They never had my permission. They forged documents, and I have proof." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen tried to shout me down, but I pulled out copies of the county filings and waved them high. They falsified records and lied to all of you. They'll steal. From me, what makes you think they won't come after your property next? The room erupted. Neighbors began shouting questions, demanding answers. Karen's face went pale as her little empire started cracking. The very next day, the HOA hit me with a barrage of fines, overgrown grass, improper fencing, and even unapproved mailbox color. All nonsense, of course, but it was their way of trying to break me down. What they didn't know was that every single fine they issued during a pending legal dispute would only strengthen my case for harassment. My lawyer was practically giddy with the amount of ammunition they were handing us. Meanwhile, I took another step. I installed cameras all along my property line and posted massive, trespassing private property signs. If they so much as set foot on my land again, I'd have them arrested. A week later, I caught contractors sneaking back onto my land, apparently hoping to resume work quietly. This time, I didn't just confront them, I called the sheriff. When the deputies arrived, I handed them my deed and the cease and desist letter. The contractors quickly realized they'd been lied to and backed off, swearing they wouldn't return. But the sheriff didn't stop there. He paid Karen a visit. Word spread fast around the neighborhood. The HOA president was under investigation for fraud. The legal process took months, but it was worth every second. My lawyer filed a lawsuit for trespassing, harassment, and attempted land theft. The county began an inquiry into the HOA's forged permits. At the next election, nearly the entire HOA board was voted out by furious homeowners. Karen tried to cling to power, but by then she was facing fines, lawsuits, and the wrath of the entire community. Eventually, the HOA had to settle with me. They paid damages, legal fees, and were forced to publicly admit their wrongdoing. Clubhouse project was permanently canceled, and as the final nail in the coffin, I had the land officially rezoned as conservation property, making it untouchable for any future development. I still live in that house, with my wooded acres untouched and peaceful. Neighbors often thank me for standing up to the HOA, saying I exposed just how corrupt they were, Karen. She ended up moving out, her reputation in shambles. Word is she tried to join another HOA in a nearby subdivision, but no one wanted her. On the board, sometimes when I sit on my porch and listen to the quiet rustle of trees, I think about how close they came to stealing it all from me. But they forgot one simple truth. If you build on someone else's land without permission, don't be surprised when they tear your empire down. Asterisk, this story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.